Zero build is fast-paced, strategic, and improving in this mode isn't always obvious. If you're grinding zero build but aren't sure if you're making real progress, this video will help. Today, we'll take a step back and break down 15 clear signs that you're leveling up your skills in zero build, and some might be more subtle than you realize. Let's dive in. Number 7. You stay calm under pressure, especially in the last fight. Staying calm under pressure, particularly in those intense final moments, is a defining trait of a skilled player. If you're no longer panicking during 1v1s or endgame scenarios, it's a sign that you've developed confidence and trust in your abilities. Picture yourself in the final circle. Instead of rushing shots or making hasty decisions, you take a moment to assess the situation, plan your next move, and execute with precision. It's like comparing a chess player plotting their next move to someone frantically trying to beat a timer. To cultivate this calmness, practice mindfulness during matches. Remind yourself to breathe, slow down, and focus on what you can control. Over time, this composed mindset becomes second nature, and you'll find yourself clutching more wins under pressure. In my experience, this calmness also comes with time. When I started playing Fortnite in Chapter 1 Season 2, I would get so nervous in the final circles, sweaty palms and all. The last fight felt like an insurmountable challenge. Now, 7 years later, fighting the last opponent feels no different than facing the first. That sense of ease comes from experience and trusting the progress you've made. Number 8. You've stopped panic firing. Panic firing, widely spraying bullets under pressure, is a common beginner habit. If you've transitioned to taking calculated, precise shots instead, it's a strong indicator of improvement. Picture an opponent sprinting toward you. Instead of unloading your SMG in a frantic spray, you calmly switch to your AR or shotgun, wait for the right moment, and land a clean shot. Not only does this show composure, but it also disrupts your opponent's focus. Their screen flinches with every hit, reducing their visibility and making it harder for them to retaliate. Think back to times when you've been on the receiving end of this. It's frustrating and often leads to mistakes. To improve further, focus on trigger discipline. This means resisting the urge to shoot immediately and instead lining up your shots for maximum impact. While it's tempting to think that firing more bullets increases your chances of hitting, in reality it often results in missed opportunities and wasted ammo. Remember, reloading mid-fight gives your opponent a chance to strike, so it's better to make your shots count. Over time, this calm and calculated approach will give you a clear edge in any fight. Number 9. You're less reliant on healing. Becoming less dependent on healing is a subtle yet significant indicator of improvement in zero build. It shows you've mastered avoiding unnecessary damage by positioning smarter, timing your engagements better, and using cover effectively. For example, instead of rushing into the open to take a risky shot, you might use natural cover like rocks or trees to protect yourself while landing damage on your opponent. This allows you to finish fights without burning through your shields or health items, leaving you prepared for the next fight or the late game. If you've reached the point where you no longer carry heals in your loadout and rely solely on looting defeated opponents for recovery items, it's a clear sign of advanced play. While this approach works well in public matches, ranked or competitive games might still require you to carry heals due to the higher skill level of opponents. To keep progressing, adopt a defensive mindset when necessary. Avoiding damage in the first place is just as crucial as dishing it out. Treat every point of health or shield you save as another opportunity to outlast your opponents and secure the win. This shift in perspective will accelerate your growth as a player. Number 10. You can handle third-party situations. Getting third-party in zero build is almost inevitable, but if you've become better at handling these moments, it's a clear sign of growth. Instead of panicking or trying to finish your fight quickly, you're making smarter decisions, like disengaging, repositioning, or turning the chaos into an opportunity. For instance, when you hear another player approaching during a fight, you might instantly break line of sight, heal up, or move to higher high ground to regain control. Early on, you might have stayed locked into the first fight, exposing yourself to both enemies. Now, you're playing strategically, ensuring you don't get sandwiched. Excelling in these situations requires strong awareness. Keep your fights short and efficient, and always be ready to rotate out when needed. Sometimes it's better to leave loot behind than risking staying in a hot zone. One of the best game modes to practice this is zero build reload solos. The smaller map size and abundance of mobility items like shockwaves, crash pads, and grapplers create frequent third-party situations. Additionally, reload features an incredible amount of loot, so leaving loot behind is rarely a major sacrifice. The mode forces you to adapt to fast-paced, high-pressure engagements, while offering enough resources to quickly reset and prepare for the next fight. I'm actually very curious, do you think handling third parties is a valid key point for this video? Or maybe you had another one better in mind? Let me know in the comments down below. Number 11. You can engage and disengage at will. Being able to choose when to fight or when to back off is one of the most underrated skills in Fortnite. I can now say that I initiate fights on my terms 95% of the time, and this shows how much my awareness and strategy have improved. For instance, when an enemy is holding high ground with a sniper, instead of rushing recklessly, I'll use a shockwave or grappler to reposition and take control of the situation. Or, if I'm caught in a bad spot, I'll disengage, rotate, and re-engage from a better angle. A well-timed disengagement can completely throw your opponent off, especially if I sneak back and catch them off guard while they're still holding their sniper. There's no shame in outsmarting your enemies. Even if your friends might joke about sneaky plays being a bit cringe, a win's a win. This skill hinges on knowing when you have the upper hand. If I'm fully stacked with 100 shields and 100 HP, I'm ready to fight. But if I'm low on health or poorly positioned, I'll retreat and reset. The best players understand that survival often matters more than eliminations, and they're not afraid to disengage to fight another day. Number 12. You recognize opponent patterns. Recognizing patterns in how your opponents play is like learning to read your opponent in a card game. I've started noticing when enemies favor peeking from the same spot or always rushing after landing a shotgun shot, and it's a clear sign that my game sense has leveled up. For example, if I'm in a duel and see my opponent strafing left after every shot, I don't react to each move individually. Instead, I anticipate the next strafe and aim ahead, landing the shot before they even finish moving. Another common scenario is when a player lands a few hits on me from long range and immediately pushes, thinking I'm weak. In these cases, I take cover, get ready for a right side peek, and hit them as soon as they appear. I've won countless fights this way by capitalizing on their over-aggressiveness. This skill develops with experience and observation. By paying attention to how players behave in similar situations, I've learned to predict their moves and stay one step ahead. And yes, I know it's repetitive, but the more you play, the better you'll become at recognizing these patterns. Number 13. You can predict storm circles. Predicting storm circles is like being a step ahead on a road trip. I know where I'm going before anyone else does. I've started consistently rotating to good positions ahead of the next storm circle, and it's made a huge difference in my gameplay. For example, at the beginning of matches, I've noticed that the first few circles typically have a tendency to pull toward one of the four corners of the map. This doesn't happen every single game, but I figured it out quickly because I tend to land on the outskirts of the map. Instead of waiting for the storm to force me to move, I'm already heading toward high ground or safe zones, while other players are still looting or rotating late. This helps me claim strong positions and avoid unnecessary damage during rotations. This skill is incredibly valuable in competitive tournaments. Every rotation matters. To improve, I study how the storm shrinks and plan my rotations proactively, prioritizing spots with natural cover or height advantage. The more I do this, the easier it becomes to send control of the match. Number 14. You're more efficient with mobility items. Mobility items like shockwave grenades, the kinetic blade, or grappler are key to surviving and thriving in zero build. I've noticed that I'm using them much more strategically now, whether it's escaping bad situations or rotating faster, which shows how much my game sense has improved. For example, instead of wasting a shockwave grenade to move a short distance, I save it for clutch moments, like escaping a third-party ambush or pushing into a fight from an advantageous angle. The same applies when I'm on the attack. If I land a few shots on my target, it feels natural to use a mobility item to close the gap and secure the elimination. This kind of efficiency comes from experience. Over time, I've learned to balance when to use mobility for defense versus offense. And now, keeping a mobility item in my loadout feels second nature. Matches feel so much smoother when I can move at will and control the flow of the engagements. Number 15. You're better at engaging from a distance. Engaging from a distance is a skill that separates good players from great ones. I've noticed that I'm getting better at landing consistent damage with assault rifles, marksman weapons, or snipers before closing in, which shows real progress in my gameplay. For example, when spotting an enemy in the open, I don't rush straight at them anymore. Instead, I stay at range, use cover, and chip away at their shields with well-placed shots. By the time I push in, I've already reduced their health, giving myself a massive advantage. What's helping me improve this skill is fine-tuning my sensitivity settings for scoped and hand-on sight. I also practice long-range fights on red versus blue maps, where real enemies shoot back. It's a concrete experience that simulates in-game scenarios really well, and I can confidently say it's paying off. Those are the 15 signs you're improving in zero build. How many of these do you notice in your own gameplay? Let me know in the comments. If this helped you spot your progress, hit that like button, and make sure to watch the next video on screen to level up your skills even more. See you there!